I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we were gathering today, the Palawa people. Today we are meeting across Lutruwita, Aboriginal land, sea and waterways online. On behalf of everyone, I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present, as well as the Tasmanian Aboriginal community who continue to care for country. We recognise a history of truth which acknowledges the impacts of invasion and colonisation upon Aboriginal people, resulting in the forcible removal from their lands. We stand for a future that profoundly respects and acknowledges Aboriginal perspectives, culture, language and history, and a continued effort to fight for Aboriginal justice and rights, paving the way for a strong future. Hi, and welcome to Working on Water, a collaborative project between That's What I Call Science and the Royal Society of Tasmania for National Science Week 2020. Today I'm joined with Claire Butler from Marine Solutions, and we'll be discussing her current role and her experiences in the field. For Science Week, we will be interviewing 4 women that work in marine science and seeing what their role means to them. Hi Claire, thanks for coming in today.
No problem, it's great to be here.
To start off with, could you give us an overview of what you do at Marine Solutions?
So at Marine Solutions, I'm working in marine consulting, and so our role in consulting is almost as custodians, for the marine environment. As a society, we use the marine environment. We want to go swimming, we go boating, we set up fish farms, we build jetties, and our role is to make sure that we can do all these things, but we do it in a way that is sustainable and can be carried forward into the future.
So at Marine Solutions, do you have any specific projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, we have a lot of projects. Some of them are really short, and some of them are also ongoing over a longer amount of time. One that I'm working on at the moment, there's a company that is trying to set up a seaweed farm to farm a species of algae that stops cows farting methane. It's a really interesting project, and I think it has some really exciting implications in terms of global warming, because livestock and the Australian dairy industry contributes, I think, I can't remember the stats quite, it's something like 14% of Australia's greenhouse emissions. I might have that wrong though.
Wow. So in terms of your role in that process, how do Marine Solutions fit into solving a way that the algae can then help with the methane emissions?
Well, the role of Marine Solutions in this particular project, we've been brought on to help in the application process. Setting up a marine farm of any sort involves, you've got to get a lot of licenses, and it might involve some environmental monitoring, and you've got to write up species biological assessments, and these sorts of things. So our role is in helping the sort of application process through that. But we're also collaborating with a research team at IMAS and a couple of different industry companies. And so there's research going on in different areas, and different trials happening.
Oh wow, so it really is a collaborative effort between different organisations.
Yeah. This is a really nice project where you get to work with a whole bunch of different people across the state, all on different parts of it.
Oh, that's fantastic. With other projects, this one and other ones, do you find yourself going into the field often?
Yes, definitely. I think as a consultant, probably half the time we're in the field, and half the time we're in the office, doing things like report writing or project planning. We'd probably be out in the field, in the boats often. Maybe half the time.
Oh wow!
That probably averages out.
Oh, neat. How long do these boat trips often go for?
Not necessarily, sometimes it might just be you go out for the day. Sometimes it might be a couple of days. we work around the state, so sometimes we're driving up to Stanley in the northwest or up the east coast, down south around Research Bay, and then a lot of stuff locally, around the D'Entrecasteaux Channel, Norfolk Bay. Yeah.
When you're out on these boat trips, what is a regular day for you?
So we do quite a variety of different things. One of the main things we do is probably water sampling. So this is often for companies, aquaculture companies, and also for Taswater as well, who manage, the state's water and sewage. And so, we'll go out in the boat, we'll have various different sites, and you're just taking a water sample from the surface, the middle and the bottom. And we essentially just fill up bottles of water and we take those to the lab, and they get analysed for nutrients, heavy metals, depends a little bit on the project and what we're looking at, but they'll get analysed, and we get the data to have a look at that. But we do a lot of diving as well, a lot of environmental impact assessments. So these might involve, going for a dive, taking some videos along transects, looking at what habitats exist, whether there's seagrass or algae or soft sediment. Looking at what species exist there. Are there lots of introduced species? Is there none? We do bathymetry mapping as well. So that helps tell you what sorts of habitats might occur, and it can also indicate how the water might be flowing in a certain area.
Just to double check, what exactly does bathymetry mean?
Bathymetry is, it's essentially the topography, but of the sea floor. So if on land, you can imagine you've got mountains, you've got hills, you've got valleys, and you have the same thing underwater, but we just can't really see it. So bathymetry is just the mapping of those, the contours, essentially.
There's a whole world underneath the water.
Yeah.
Wow, so your work sounds incredibly varied. Could you tell me about any particular amazing experiences that you've had?
Well, I think some of the most amazing experiences I've had would be diving. I just think that, underwater it's almost like another world. There's so many, cool little critters and cool seascapes, I guess, as opposed to landscapes. And I've been lucky enough that I've been able to go diving in, such a lot of varied habitats throughout Tasmania in particular, having been up north and down south and on the east coast. And so just being able to see that variety is really quite amazing. I do think, over the years of diving, there is, sometimes you do kind of have a bit of a conflict. You sort of see these really lovely, pristine habitats, and then you'll see another area that has, potentially been degraded just through human use, or even just, you can see the impact of climate change sometimes, particularly on the East Coast. I remember one dive that I did in an urchin barren, and we dropped down underwater, and it was literally just a bare boulder field. And having been in lush kelp forests, all these fish and invertebrates and colours, and then just in this bare boulder field, it does make you can't help but be sad sometimes.
Does it give you a strong emotional drive towards your work, that that you're making a difference and helping things?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the motivation in doing what I do, and having pursued the opportunities that I have. I think it's really important that we look after what we've got, and so that's in consulting, it's certainly a good way to do it. We're not going to stop using the marine environment, so I think that if we can work out ways to do so in a sustainable way, then I think that's a real positive.
Growing up, did you always know that you wanted to go into marine science, or was it something you realised later on? I fell into marine science in a somewhat funny way. Do tell.
I actually, I do remember in Year 12 listening to a David Attenborough documentary talking about an upwelling zone. I'm not sure where, but I remember thinking, oh, marine science, that's pretty cool. And I actually enrolled in a marine science degree coming out of school, but I took a year off, and in that year I went cycle touring, and my friend who I was with, she got hit by a car in the process. She was fine, but it just the experience, I think, I don't know, it changed my mindset a little bit. I was like, actually, maybe I want to be a paramedic. And I actually started a paramedics degree. But after 6 months, I decided, no, actually, this isn't for me. And I enrolled in and actually completed my degree in geology and plant science. But I reckon it was about the end of my second year of my degree, and I got my dive license. And I then took up, shortly after, took up a couple of marine science subjects, and I just loved it.
You were hooked forevermore.
Yeah. Oh. And so then I switched into marine science for my honours.
Oh, brilliant. Could you tell us a bit more about your honours project?
Yeah, so my honours, it was in seaweed ecology. So I was looking at giant kelp and where it's distributed around Tasmania and how that's changed over the last 30 years.
So in terms of, that's a huge and really long scale project. Where do you get this data from?
I was using satellite imagery. I wish I'd got a lot of field work, but I didn't. But no, satellite images, you can see floating canopies of kelp because they photosynthesize. It can come out as bright red in satellite images. So I had a time series of satellite imagery over 30 years, and I used that to pick out the spots where it was and create just a time series of area.
Oh, that's incredible. So in these images that have been collected, how do you spot and pick out the kelp?
Giant kelp's really special in that it grows from the seafloor, right to the surface of the water, and you can see it on the surface of the water through what's called a NDVI index, so a normalised difference vegetation index. But that's essentially just a ratio of the amount of red and near infrared light that's reflected off the sea surface. So kelp might get this the wrong way around. Kelp will absorb the near infrared, whereas the water will reflect it. So it just creates a contrast, and you can see that really easily in the imagery if you're using the near infrared and red bands.
Has the process of collecting the images changed over the 30 years, or has it always sort of been the same method?
The images are collected, I use Landsat imagery. So they've obviously, over the years, improved their sensors and improved the amount of data they can collect through, expanding the wavelengths in their sensors. And the technology to actually extract the data on kelp canopy cover has improved a lot over the years. For my honours, I used a relatively simple method, but these days people are developing a lot of automated algorithms that can do it a lot faster and a lot easier. Yeah. Once you've got the algorithm, it's a lot easier.
I can imagine. How did you find the transition from pure research into industry and working for Marine Solutions?
It's quite different. I have found a lot of the projects in industry are a lot shorter. You've got a lot more sort of small deadlines because people they might need the license or the permit, or things sort of happen at a bit of a faster pace. But a lot of the the sort of the scientific way of thinking and the processes that you learn through or that I learned through sort of academia and research assistant positions can be transferred over. yeah, but there's certainly, different aspects to consulting that I hadn't necessarily considered so much in a more research-focused role.
Yeah. Is there any advice that you would give to someone thinking of making the switch from research to industry?
I think that that having a variety of different skills can be really useful. I was able, I had a diving certificate. I have a little bit of experience with spatial data and GIS. And I've done a little bit of modelling before, and I've used all those skills in an industry consulting environment, which has been really useful. So yeah, I think just realising what skills you have and the different ways they can be applied, and in a consulting team, it's the more variety the better, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Having grown up in Tasmania, which is an island with such incredible access to, as you said, water sports and fishing and so on, how do you think being Tasmanian affected your future career in marine science?
Well, I certainly think, being in Tasmania gave me a passion for the outdoors, and, a love for nature, and anything you love, you want to look after. So I think that that's certainly, part of the reason that I have ended up in a scientific career. And I think Tassie's a really great spot for marine science. We've got in terms of research institutions, there's IMAS, CSIRO, the Australian Antarctic Division, and we've got, so many industry companies as well, all, using the marine environment. So there's a really great community, and I think just because it's a little bit, it's small compared to a lot of places, you get to know everyone, and you get to work with everyone, and it's you can bring all these different aspects into just a single project. And I think having that diversity and knowing the people you're working with so well, I think it creates a really nice environment to be working in, which certainly helps in any job.
Definitely. And the work that's done here in Tasmania, it has such huge relevance both locally and internationally as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think what a lot of the stuff we do here is very relevant worldwide. Tassie, in terms of climate change, well, I won't say we're lucky, but we have a nice spot to be studying in, because our waters off the east coast in particular are warming at about 4 times the global average. So we're seeing a lot of change in our ecosystems that from a scientific perspective is quite interesting. And so, yeah, places around the world, can look to us.
Could you please expand on why Tasmania's heating at such a higher rate than the other oceans?
Yeah, so on the east coast of Tasmania, we have a boundary current, the East Australian Current, which sort of flows from northern Australia down the east coast. And as a result of climate change and changes to atmospheric circulation affecting ocean circulation, then the East Australian Current is sort of penetrating further and further south. So the result of this is that the waters off Tassie are warming at a much faster rate than some other regions around the world.
Am I right in thinking the East Australian Current was the one in Finding Nemo as well? Yeah, with the turtles.
That's the one.
Now, looking at your career as a whole so far, have you found being a woman in particular has raised any different challenges or any sort of obstacles that you've needed to come up against?
I think I've been pretty lucky in my career so far. I don't feel that I've been disadvantaged in any way by being a woman. I certainly know, I've certainly heard of some experiences. I think it is a shame that there aren't so many women high up in the higher levels of science, because coming through, you certainly notice that, a lot of the time all your supervisors or something might be male. And I think it's really important to have females in those roles, you know, just for diversity and to give different people to look up to. And it's certainly a difficult, you know, I guess scientific circles can be a bit difficult to navigate sometimes. And yeah, I think, you know, having that diversity is really important.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any role models when you were going through university or even school? Because you mentioned David Attenborough, but was there anyone, perhaps, we all wish we knew David Attenborough, let's be honest, but do you have anyone in close contact that really helped you through?
I've had a lot of good support in terms of some of the supervisors and mentors I've had around me. I think probably in particular, I mean, I'm looking at role models. I think I've found a lot of my support has come from the friends and peers around me in science. Mm-hmm. And I think learning with them and, you know, learning from their experiences and being able to talk to them has helped me a lot. Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a big drive towards being open with your struggles, especially in academia.
Yeah.
Would you say it's the same in industry as well? You really need to be honest when you're having a problem?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're, you know, at any point in time, if you're working with a team, you know, if you're struggling with, you know, something, whatever it is, it might be something to do with work or even in your personal life, I think it's really important to be able to be open about that. And you know, I'm lucky enough, you know, particularly in my job at the moment, it's a really supportive environment. And so, you know, if anything comes up, if you're struggling with, you know, how to plan a project or you don't know what, you know, there's always someone there to be able to talk to about it.
Oh, that's so brilliant to have that support network.
Yeah.
Has there been a particular result that you've had from analysis or a fieldwork moment that you would say that was so far your favourite moment from working in marine science?
I think one of the maybe one of the ones that comes to mind is, you know, after having done all the analysis of satellite imagery, you know, so I've stared at all these images and, you know, drawn circles around kelp beds for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And finally, at the end of that, once you've got all your numbers and you can put it in a spreadsheet and you plot that first figure of, you know, area of kelp through time. That was certainly a good one.
All the work paid off.
Yeah.
End.
You see your result and you're like, you know, I have done something.
Yeah, that sense of achievement. And fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Claire. It's been really brilliant talking with you.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah. And thank you for watching. If you're interested in That's What I Call Science or the Royal Society of Tasmania, please head to our social media channels to check us out. Thanks and goodbye.